Alright, in this video I'm going to talk about several things that we talked about in class that will help with your basic PHP functions and using it with a form on the form on the actual page. So the first thing I want to talk about is the includes. So notice up here at the top we use the word the keyword include, and we include the location. So this happens to be inside a folder called INC, and the name of the page is called functions. On this page, we created our own function, our user-defined function called isPostRequest, and that is actually in the functions page. So if we look over here on functions, this is what the function looks like. It says function isPostRequest. Basically returns a true if the method used is a post. Okay, so is this a post request? Now what that does is when the page loads, it's procedural. So the include adds this functions page and everything in it into this area right here. Okay, that's how you'd use an include. What happens, the page loads, it comes down and it reads this if statement and skips over it, comes down here and loads the form. When the form is loaded and they click the submit button, it comes back and this right here needs to actually be, I think it's called if post. So it would actually hit back on itself and it would post it. And this if statement would see that and it would run what was in this if statement. Okay. Now let's say we wanted to run what was in the if statement and not load the form the second time. We can do that by adding an else here. Okay, and else we would load the form. Else we don't load the form. So we would add our PHP here. And we would, close our else statement and close up the PHP. So that would say, if this is a post, do this, otherwise load this. So on the form initial load, it would load this part here. Once you click the submit button, it would load this part here. Now that's the first thing I want to talk about. So we talked about includes. We've talked about this function is post request and how to have it load on itself. So essentially what it's doing is not taking it to a second page. It's posting it on itself. So let's get rid of that code and let's get rid of this code here. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is this redirect. Okay, after it's been posted, it does stuff. When it's finished doing its thing, we want it to go back to say the index file. So using this code here, header location index.php, that will redirect it back to this index file. Okay, so that's the next thing I wanted to talk about. The last thing I want to talk about is this hidden type here. Okay, so this is a when you post, we want to be able to access the variables within the post request, but in order to do that with course ID, we want to make it hidden. So what that's going to do is it's going to allow us to put the value of course ID here, to hide it from the user so they can't change it, but to allow us to use it within the post request. Okay, so it's called hidden value, and this is how you put the double quotes here, and this is how you would echo out the value of course ID. Okay, that's how you would echo that out and put it here. So what you would do is up at the very top, assuming that you have access to the variables, you would say something like course ID is equal to, and then get, and then course ID. Now, that's the last thing I want to talk about also is, where is this coming from? Well, this is coming from the URL. So in the URL itself, it will have that variable called course ID with a value, and this get method grabs it from the URL, puts it into this memory location here, and then that's how you're using it here. This, when it's finished, it actually posts it and it's actually accessible inside this is post request. Okay, so we've talked about several very good things. First, includes, how you would use the include. Now when you have the include, you want to make sure you start and end the include file if it's PHP with PHP. You can also include header information. So this is a header information that you can have on every single page. And what you would do is you would put where you'd want it. You can put it, say you want the header here, you can just say header, okay? Or you could say, hey, I want the header to actually load down here, okay? So you could say I want the header to load here and get rid of all the stuff, which is basically these 3 lines, which is inside the header. You can get rid of that, and the header will load, and then the form will come in after the header. So that's how you would use the includes. So this is just some of the basics that we talked about in class on this last week.